When you're building your own world in your novel, make sure that you understand its history almost as well as you understand its present. When you're creating a world, so for example, with me, I created a cyberpunk world, a metropolis city called Glass, and you have this history behind it too, as well as the present. I understand the present in terms of its culture, how the city works, how it functions, but I also understand its history, what came before it, what led to it. By understanding your history, you're also able to understand, its present and vice versa. And the closer you are able to link the two together, the more intimate the world that you've created feels to your reader. And so that's something that I want to advise if you are writing a novel right now. I do, writing tips and advice almost every night as I'm going through the process of working on my second book in a trilogy of books. First book, The Glass God, is already out. You can find it on Amazon, link in the description below. But for you, fellow writers, I'm trying to think of like a nickname that I can make because I want to build a community through this. I want to build a community of writers as we're working on, challenging each other and learning how to write better books together. My first book was obviously very flawed. There were people that liked it, but there were so many ways in which I feel the book could have been done better. And the second book has been an immense practice for me to get better with the craft, and I want you to get better with the craft as well. So, a couple of questions. What kind of world are you creating? If you're a novel writer or you are someone who has an idea but hasn't started writing yet, what kind of world are you creating? Is it cyberpunk? Is it a straight up fantasy world, something akin to The Lord of the Rings or Dark Souls? Um, is it science fiction, something along the lines of Star Wars, or maybe it's Star Trek where Earth is involved, but there's also other planets out there? Like, what kind of genre are you making where the world is completely your own? Or maybe you're working on urban fantasy where Earth exists, but there's another world, out there somewhere, another realm, universe, alternate reality, whatever. Um, Once you've created that world, what are its rules? What is its history? Why is the world that is, set in the present time as you're writing the story, why is the world the way it is now? What in history has made it operate in this way? Has it always been like this? I personally think it's important to like build a history and explain how the world became the way that it is because it helps immerse the readers further into this world. It makes the world feel alive. It makes it feel alive with its own history, its own cultures, its own, belief systems and philosophies and everything. Its own technology or way that the societies are run. How are the governments built? Like, I mean, sometimes you don't have to get this crazy, but like, how are the economies run and everything? I think it's really interesting. One thing that I wanted to note, one thing that stuck out to me while reading the Witcher series, for example, is that there are a couple of lines of dialogue dropped in Sword of Destiny, where Geralt mentions that one of the reasons why it's so important to him to keep finding basically these not missions but these jobs to slay monsters is because the costs of day-to-day life just continues to go up in this world, and so he has to continue finding work and finding work more consistently. He and his friend Dandelion are always talking about how they barely have any money just to find a room to stay in for the night, and so Geralt has to continue, finding jobs to slay monsters and save these communities so that he can continue to get paid, so that he can continue to, have a roof over his head or food to eat. I just thought that was really interesting. The author doesn't even really go too deep into how or why the economy is like this. he just sprinkles just enough in there to explain that rising costs of living is one of the biggest reasons why Geralt, continues to do what he does, and that is to slay monsters and save communities. So like sometimes, like some authors will go really deep into the history of these worlds. Obviously, look no further than J.R.R. Tolkien if you want to look for someone who did this very intimately. And then there are some authors that give you just enough where it's enough to support the narrative, but there's also enough left out that it leaves enough to the reader's imagination so that they can kind of fill the gaps in their heads, and it makes it interesting to the readers because then they can come up with their own theories. But you have to put in just enough that the readers have some theories to go off of. It's interesting stuff. And so, yeah, that's my encouragement to you tonight. If you're working on a story that involves creating your own world, start thinking about its history. And maybe you won't even have all of its history figured out before you start, putting pen to paper for chapter 1. But as you go through the story and as you build this world and as you figure out how it works, figure out what kind of a history did it have to lead into the world that the reader is seeing at present, and how does it impact the characters, how does it impact the story. These are all things where it creates a network of different things all working in tandem with each other. So yeah, that's my encouragement for you tonight. Build a history and have fun with it. If you are someone who played Dungeons and Dragons growing up, maybe you were even the dungeon master, think of it that way. You are creating a world, but you are also telling a story within it instead of having a couple of people kind of like guide the story along with their own character arcs. So yeah, I hope this was enjoyable to you. I do this almost every night. I try to help fellow writers, build their worlds, build their stories, get more confident in writing their books. Writing a novel is a massive, massive undertaking. And if you are able to complete one and get it published, you have no idea right now just how big of a success that actually is, how big of a deal that actually is, because so few people who think, okay, I think I want to write a book. So few people actually get to the very end. So if you do, that's amazing, and I want to see you get there. You can like this video and subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to continue getting advice from me or tips or just simple encouragement. I do this almost every day of the week, so you can expect to see this continuing to come in the weeks and the months and even potentially the years ahead. I'll see you guys next time.